The warning. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with a cold silence. Bright stars shone through the tall glass walls, and the leaders of the Empire sat in a half-circle, their faces calm, but their minds full of pride. They ruled thousands of worlds, stretched across hundreds of star systems. To them, no enemy remained in the galaxy. They believed nothing could stand against their fleets. But that silence was broken when the name of a forgotten planet was spoken. Earth, the word echoed through the chamber. Young alien officers exchanged confused glances. Some laughed softly, others frowned. To them, Earth was just a myth, a ruined world spoken of in old records. They had never seen it, never thought it was important. "Why bring up Earth?" one officer asked. His voice was mocking. "It is nothing but dust, a dead rock." An older figure leaned forward. He was not a warrior but a historian. His scales were faded with age, and his eyes were heavy with memory. His voice trembled as he spoke, but there was strength in it. "You are wrong," he said. "The records are clear. Earth is not to be touched. It is a forbidden zone." The young officers smirked. "Forbidden by who? The humans? They are extinct. They destroyed themselves long ago." The historian shook his head slowly. "You think extinction makes them safe? You think silence means weakness? That is the mistake every empire made before you, and it was the last mistake they ever made." The chamber grew quiet. Even the mocking smiles faded. The historian raised a thin hand and called for the council's archives. A hologram flickered into life above the table, showing ancient battle records. Giant ships burned in the blackness of space, entire fleets torn apart. Alien war cries were recorded, followed by silence. "These are not myths," he said. "These are the scars left by humans. They fought empires far greater than ours. And they won, not with numbers but with will." The young officers leaned closer, curiosity growing inside them despite their arrogance. One of them asked, "What made them so dangerous? Their technology? Their armies?" The old historian's eyes narrowed. "Not only that. Humans had something no other species understood. They were unpredictable. They could turn weakness into strength. They could make weapons out of scrap, soldiers out of farmers, and allies out of enemies. No matter what was thrown at them, they found a way to fight back." The council chamber grew heavier with his words. "They were warned once," the historian continued. "An empire called the Vanar tried to conquer them. The Vanar sent 300 ships. None returned. The survivors spoke of human fleets rising from shadows, of strategies no mind could predict. Earth was marked forbidden after that. It was not for protection of humans. It was for the protection of the galaxy." The council fell into silence again. The young officers shifted uncomfortably. Pride burned in their hearts, but doubt crept in like smoke. Finally, the Emperor himself spoke. His voice was calm, but dangerous. "If humans were so powerful, why are they gone? If they were so dangerous, why is Earth silent now?" The historian lowered his eyes. "Perhaps they destroyed themselves. Perhaps something else happened. But silence is not safety, my lord. The warnings say this: disturb Earth, and you will wake what should never be woken." Some officers laughed again, though weaker this time. "Stories for children," one muttered. "Old tales to frighten the weak." The Emperor's gaze stayed on the hologram. He watched the burning fleets, the broken planets. His expression was unreadable. Still, the warning had been given. Far from the council chamber in the cold black of space, Earth spun silently around its sun. Its cities were broken, its skies empty. To the galaxy, it looked dead. But deep beneath its ruins, something waited. Silent machines monitored the stars. Hidden satellites listened to every signal, every fleet movement. And far below the surface, in the darkness where no empire dared to look, human eyes opened. The old warning was not just history, it was truth. And soon, the galaxy would remember it. The first violation. The warning had been spoken, yet pride is louder than wisdom. The Galactic Empire did not listen. Words of an old historian were easy to dismiss. To the younger officers, Earth was nothing more than an abandoned world, silent, broken, and empty. A small group of captains hungry for glory decided to prove the warning false. They whispered to each other in the shadows of the great fleets. "Earth is nothing," one captain said. His sharp teeth glinted under the ship's lights. "If we bring back proof, the Emperor himself will reward us." Another laughed. "The historian is old. His stories belong in the past. We will show the truth. Earth is dead." Their ships, sleek and shining, slipped away from the Empire's main fleet. No announcement was made. No permission was asked. In secret, they set their course toward the forbidden world. For days, the journey was silent. Stars stretched past, them like rivers of fire. The captains joked, mocking the ghost stories they had heard in the council. But when Earth finally appeared before them, the laughter died. The planet was gray and scarred. Massive craters dotted the surface. Ancient cities lay in ruins, their towers broken like the teeth of a fallen giant. Clouds of dust drifted through the skies and oceans shimmered with strange reflections. "It really is dead," one captain said with satisfaction. "A graveyard world, nothing more." The fleet circled the planet, scanners searching for signs of life. At first there was nothing. No heat signatures, no transmissions, no movement. The captains relaxed. "See?" another said proudly. "The stories were lies. There are no humans, only dirt and stone." But then something stirred. One of the alien ships picked up a faint signal. A small, irregular pulse, repeating again and again. At first they thought it was just static, the echo of some long-dead technology. But the pattern was too precise. "Coordinates," one officer whispered. The pulse was guiding them somewhere. Curiosity pushed them closer. They followed the signal down to low orbit, where ancient satellites floated like corpses in the void. Many were broken, their surfaces covered in rust and scars. But one satellite suddenly turned as if waking from sleep. Its sensors locked onto the alien ship. "Something is wrong," a navigator said, panic in her voice. Before anyone could respond, the satellite's surface opened. A blinding beam of energy shot out, striking the alien ship's engines. The vessel shook violently. Systems went dark. The crew shouted in alarm as sparks filled the bridge. "It's disabling us," the captain screamed. But it was not just disabling. The satellite was scanning them, reaching deep into their systems, reading their codes and rewriting them. Their ship, the pride of the Empire, was no longer under their control. The other captains shouted orders, pulling their fleets back. But more satellites turned, one after another, their dead shells glowing with new life. "This planet is not empty," one officer cried. "It is watching us." And then, it happened. A voice cut through the static. The bridge speakers crackled, carrying words in a language none of the aliens knew, yet somehow they understood. The voice was deep, human, and filled with authority. "You were warned." The words echoed across every ship. Crew members froze. Fear twisted in their hearts. They were not supposed to understand the language, but they did. It was as if the words were inside their minds. "Impossible," one captain whispered. "Humans are extinct." But the signal grew stronger. Across Earth's surface, faint lights began to flicker in the ruins. Broken cities glowed as hidden machines woke up. The planet was not a graveyard. It was a fortress. "Retreat," one captain ordered. His voice shook with fear, but it was too late. From deep within Earth's shadow, something moved. Old, black ships rose from beneath the planet's surface, hidden for centuries. They were not shining or polished like the Empire's fleets. They were scarred, patched, and terrifying in their simplicity. But they were alive, and they carried a power no alien could understand. The captains stared in horror. They still have ships after all this time. The human vessels did not fire. They only formed a line, blocking the aliens from getting closer. Their silence was more frightening than any weapon. Once again the voice returned. "Leave. This world is not yours. The alien captains hesitated, pride warring with terror. Their scanners showed no life forms, no signs of human bodies. Yet, something was controlling those ships. Something was speaking to them. Fear won. The small fleet turned, engines burning as they escaped Earth's orbit. Their silence during the retreat was heavier than battle cries. But even as they fled, every captain knew the truth. They could not keep this a secret. Their eyes had seen too much. The Empire would learn that Earth was not empty, and when the Empire learned, it would come. Deep below the ruins of Earth, hidden in the shadows of history, human eyes watched the retreat. They did not smile. They did not celebrate. They only whispered to each other in the dark. They have returned. The ghosts of humanity. When the surviving captains returned to the Empire, their reports spread like fire. Many refused to believe them. Old satellites, rusted ships, voices in their minds. To most of the council, it sounded like madness. But the Emperor could not ignore the fear in their eyes. Proud captains did not return trembling unless the danger was real. So the Empire decided to investigate. Not with a small fleet this time, but with an official expedition. Scientists, soldiers, and intelligence officers were gathered. Their mission, to uncover the truth of Earth. The fleet arrived in silence. 10 massive warships, escorted by dozens of smaller crafts, entered Earth's orbit. The ruined planet floated below them, gray and lifeless, just as the first captains had seen. On the command ship, General Xylar stood tall. His armor shone in the dim light of the bridge. He was known for his lack of fear, a commander who had crushed rebellions on 3 different worlds. Remember this, he told his officers. We are the Empire. No myth, no ghost, no ruin can stand against us. His words filled the crew with confidence, but their eyes still betrayed doubt. The first scans began. Drones were sent down to the surface, landing among the broken towers of dead cities. The ruins were silent, untouched for centuries. Cracked roads, collapsed bridges, and shattered buildings stretched as far as the drones could see. Nothing here but dust, one scientist muttered. Just an old world left to rot. But the drones kept moving. In the middle of a ruined city, one camera caught something strange. A light. It was faint, buried deep beneath rubble. At first they thought it was just a reflection. But as the drone moved closer, the light pulsed. It was not natural. It was a signal. Focus there, General Xylar ordered. The drones cleared debris, uncovering a hidden structure. It was made of black metal, sharp and unnatural compared to the ruined city around it. Strange markings covered its walls, symbols, numbers, and words in the human language. What is it? One officer asked. A bunker, the scientist whispered. His voice trembled. Still active. Before they could continue, the drone's screen turned to static. One by one, every drone feed went dark. What happened? The officers shouted. The scientists worked frantically. They've been shut down. Something down there disabled them. The bridge grew cold. General Xylar's eyes narrowed. Send soldiers. Dropships carried alien troops down to the surface. Heavily armed, they moved through the ruins, their weapons ready. Dust covered their armor as they stepped into the broken city. The silence pressed against them, heavy and unnatural. Suddenly, one soldier froze. His helmet visor flickered. He screamed as his suit powered off. The others turned, panic filling their voices. What's wrong with him? Before anyone could help, a strange shadow moved across the walls. Not a living being, not a soldier, but a figure made of light. A human shape, tall, thin, and glowing faintly. It flickered like a ghost, staring at the soldiers before vanishing. The soldiers fired wildly at empty air. Their blasts struck broken buildings, but nothing else. Report. General Xylar demanded from orbit. The squad leader's voice shook. We saw something. A figure. Human shape. It looked alive. Impossible, the general snapped. There are no humans left. But even as he spoke, more lights began to appear. Dozens of ghostly figures flickered in and out across the ruins. Some stood on rooftops, others walked the streets, all of them human. The soldiers fired again, but the shapes vanished like smoke. And then one of the soldiers shouted, "They're speaking!" The air filled with whispers. Human voices, broken and distorted, spoke in a language the aliens did not know, yet once again they understood. "Leave this place." Panic spread. Soldiers dropped their weapons, their minds trembling under the weight of the voices. In orbit, the scientists analyzed the signals. "These are not spirits," one said slowly. "These are machines. Holograms. A defense system built to mimic humans." "But how is it still working?" another asked. "Centuries have passed. No technology lasts this long," the lead scientist swallowed hard, "unless it was built by humans." Back on the surface, the squad reached the black bunker. Its doors began to open with a low, grinding sound. A cold wind swept through the ruins as darkness spilled out from within. From the bunker rose machines. They were not sleek like the Empire's drones. They were brutal, practical, built for war. Human machines, still armed, still waiting. Their red eyes glowed as they surrounded the soldiers. The squad leader shouted for retreat. But the bunker did not let them go so easily. The ground shook. Entire streets cracked open as more machines climbed out. Towers of steel, tanks with rail cannons, automated turrets. The Empire's soldiers were trapped. General Zyler ordered immediate extraction. Dropships fired down plasma to clear a path. The soldiers ran, dragging the wounded with them. Ghostly, human figures watched from the rooftops, their eyes glowing faintly. When the surviving soldiers returned to orbit, their faces were pale. General Zylar clenched his fists. Machines, holograms, ghosts. So what? Humans are still gone. All that remains are toys. But deep down, even he felt the truth. These were not toys. These were warnings, left behind by a people who had planned for the future. The historian's words returned to him. Silence is not safety. And in the shadows of Earth, the true ghosts of humanity waited for the Empire to make its next move. The return, the council chambers shook with arguments when General Zylar's report arrived. Some leaders laughed at his words, calling them tricks of broken machines. Others felt a shadow of fear. The truth could no longer be ignored. Earth was not dead. Something still lived there, something that remembered. The Emperor was not a man of patience. "If machines remain," he declared, "we will burn them. If ghosts walk, we will scatter them. If humans survived, then we will end them." The order was given. A full invasion fleet was prepared. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, weapons enough to burn a planet to ash. Pride blinded them. They believed they were bringing final peace to the galaxy. The fleet entered Earth's skies like a storm. Their war drums echoed in the stars. On the surface, the ruins were silent. The machines stood still. The holograms vanished. To the invaders, it looked as though the planet had surrendered. "This is all they have?" one commander sneered. "Old toys and broken ghosts." Dropships landed in the ruins of ancient human cities. Soldiers spread out, scanning for resistance. Nothing moved. Streets were empty, towers broken, rivers filled with dust. But below, the surface hidden deep in the dark, humans were watching. They had lived in silence for centuries. Generations born and raised in underground bunkers, fed by hydro farms and solar collectors, guided by the knowledge of ancestors. They were not many, but they were strong. Their bodies carried scars of survival, and their eyes carried fire. Commander, Ilara stood among them. She was tall, her hair silvered by age, but her spirit burned like iron. She looked at the screens showing the Empire's fleets above. "They have come," she whispered. Around her, men and women checked weapons, loaded rifles and activated old consoles. Machines long asleep flickered to life. Red lights ran across armored walls. The hum of engines echoed through the tunnels. For centuries, Earth had waited. Now it was time. Above, General Xylar ordered the attack to begin. Destroy the bunkers, burn everything, leave no trace. The first strike came from the Empire's cannons. Explosions shook the ground. Dust clouds rose into the skies. Soldiers cheered, certain they had won. But then the ground split. From beneath the ruins, massive panels of steel lifted into the air. Whole sections of the city cracked open, revealing hidden hangars buried for generations. The soldiers stared, in shock as ancient warships rose from the earth like giants. They were not beautiful ships. They were scarred, patched with strange alloys built from the bones of fallen cities, but they carried a deadly presence. Their cannons glowed, their shields crackled, and their engines roared with power. General Xylar's eyes widened. Impossible. These ships should not exist. The human fleet launched into the skies. Silent at first, then roaring with fire. The Empire's scanners lit up with hundreds of targets, ships that had been hidden beneath Earth's skin for centuries. On board, one of the ships, Commander Elara, stood at the command deck. Her hands rested on controls older than her own bloodline. "Signal the galaxy," she said. Across every Empire ship, across every channel, a human voice echoed. Strong, clear, undeniable. "This is Earth. You were warned. You should not have come." The Empire's fleets opened fire. Beams of plasma cut across the skies, striking at the human ships, but the humans did not break. Their shields held, their cannons returned fire. Explosions filled the orbit, turning night into day. The soldiers who had mocked the old stories now screamed as fire rained upon them. Empire ships shattered under human weapons, one after another. General Xylar refused to retreat. His pride burned, hotter than fear. "We are the Empire. They are only remnants. Destroy them." But the humans fought like no other species. They were not just soldiers. They were survivors. Every strike was precise. Every tactic unpredictable. They lured ships into traps, cut supply lines, and turned the Empire's strength into weakness. From orbit to the surface, the battle raged. Human machines rolled out of bunkers, tanks and walkers crushing alien troops in the streets. Drones swarmed the skies, tearing through dropships. Ghostly holograms marched beside real soldiers, confusing the invaders with fear. The Empire realized too late that they were not fighting ghosts or machines. They were fighting people, people who had waited in silence, preparing for this very day. On the command ship, General Xylar finally understood the warning. His screens filled with the image of Commander Elara, her eyes burning with fury. "You thought we were gone," she said coldly. "You thought silence meant death. But we are humanity. We do not fade, we do not surrender, and we never forget." Then her fleet opened fire. The Empire's flagship shook under the storm. Alarms screamed, flames tore through its hull. For the first time in his life, General Xylar felt fear. Below, the ruins of Earth burned bright again, not as a graveyard, but as a battlefield. The galaxy had believed Earth was a dead world. Now it saw the truth. Humanity had returned, and they were not weak. The reckoning, the sky above Earth was fire. Empire warships burned like falling stars, their wreckage raining down into the oceans and shattered cities. The ground shook as explosions thundered across the surface. What had begun as an invasion had turned into a massacre, but not the way the Empire had expected. On the command decks of human warships, survivors who had lived in silence for centuries now fought with voices full of fire. They were few in number, yet every move carried precision, every strike carried vengeance. They had trained for this day. They had prepared for generations. Commander Elara stood tall on her flagship's bridge. Around her, young soldiers, descendants of those who had hidden underground, worked calmly, as though battle was their birthright. The Empire had numbers, but humanity had something far greater: will. The Emperor's fleet began to collapse. Ships broke formation. Captains shouted for retreat. Pride had carried them into battle, but fear now dragged them away. General Xylar, still alive on his battered flagship, refused to accept defeat. His eyes blazed with fury as sparks rained across his command deck. "They are only humans," he shouted. "They were supposed to be extinct. Fight them, fight them." But even his own officers looked at him with fear. They had seen the truth. These were not weak remnants. These were the same humans who had crushed empires before, and now they were rising again. The human fleet advanced in silence. They did not cheer. They did not boast. Their weapons spoke for them, tearing through the last of the Empire's resistance. Finally, Commander Alara gave the order. "Bring their leader to me." A human boarding party stormed the remains of General Xylar's flagship. They fought through broken corridors, past terrified alien soldiers who had lost the will to resist. Within minutes, the great general, the man who had mocked Earth, who had called humans myths, was dragged before her. He fell to his knees on the human command deck, blood running from a cut across his forehead. His eyes were wide with rage and fear. "You," he spat. "You should not exist. You should have stayed buried." Commander Alara's gaze was cold. "You came here by choice. You were warned. Now you will carry our warning back to your emperor. If you survive." Xylar trembled, his pride broken. "What are you?" he whispered. "Machines? Ghosts? A dying race clinging to the past?" Alara leaned closer. Her voice was steady, sharp as steel. "We are humanity. We are the nightmare your galaxy tried to forget. And we do not die quietly." She motioned to her soldiers. They dragged him away, not to kill him but to return him alive. Fear was a sharper weapon than death. Moments later, every human ship broadcasted a signal across the galaxy, not just to the Empire, but to every world, every outpost, every corner of space. The message carried on every frequency: impossible to block, impossible to ignore. A human face appeared. Commander Alara, scarred but unbroken. Her voice thundered like the strike of war drums. "This is Earth. This is humanity. We warned you once and you did not listen. You believed us extinct. You believed silence meant weakness, but now you know the truth. We are alive. We are strong, and we will not bow." Her eyes burned with fire as she leaned closer to the screen. "The next fleet that enters our skies will not return. Let the galaxy remember. Earth is forbidden, not because it is empty, but because it is ours." The signal ended. Silence fell across countless worlds. In the council chambers of the Empire, leaders sat frozen. Some shook with fear, others whispered in disbelief. The Emperor himself clenched his fists, his pride wounded deeper than any scar. But even he could not ignore the truth. The galaxy had changed. For centuries, humans had been a forgotten name, a myth spoken of in warnings. Now they were a living terror once more. A race that turned ruins into fortresses, silence into strength, and death into rebirth. Back on Earth, the warships returned to their hidden hangars. Machines went silent again, buried beneath the ruins. The skies grew still. To an outsider, Earth looked quiet once more, but deep below, humanity waited, watching, preparing. The galaxy had been given its final warning, and this time, no one would laugh.